People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you're never getting that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees. They don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, find us at zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. This is a show where we sit down and we talk about retirement and some of the things that might be kind of concerning you or you're wondering about, you've got questions about. That's okay. That's why we have this show, and we're going to handle one of the big ones right now, right into the Market Watch Advisor column. People have always got interesting questions there, and this is one that comes up a lot. I've got all these different buckets of money. I saved in a savings account. I've got CDs. I've got my Social Security. I've got some stock. I've got all over the place. I've got all these different buckets of money. Which ones do I get into first? What should be the order of my withdrawal? And so the advisor says this: first, get into your cash, savings, money markets, bonds, Social Security. Still make sure you've got an emergency fund. Leave your 401k and your IRA to grow a little bit, and then get into that. And then the last money you spend is your Roth money. All right? I wanted to get your opinion on that. What do you say? Is that kind of like what you do, or is that too simplistic, too generic? What do you say about that one?
Yeah, that's basic general knowledge. And I would say, yes, that is the simplest form of starting your income streams in retirement. But that is not customized. That is cookie cutter. And a lot of people come in and see us, they're like, we don't want cookie cutter. This is why we're sitting with you, Charisse. And that comes from investments. But it also comes to, how are you taking your withdrawal strategy? Because that is the hardest thing people have when it comes to retirement and wrapping their minds around it. It really stresses them out. Like, okay, I read this is what it says, but is that true? And here's the deal. It all depends on your tax plan. And this is why I've always said, you heard me till I'm blue in the face, there is no investment plan, there is no income plan until we figure out the tax plan. I don't know how advisors do it, and they don't. And therefore, you're on a default mode with a lot of these advisors because they're deer in the headlights with taxes. And then the next thing you know, you haven't pulled from the right buckets or you haven't strategized. So it depends what you want to do with your money. Do you want to leave a legacy to your beneficiaries tax-free? Do you want to be in a tax-free zone 10 years from now and do a little work now to work on that? And that's what's really the important part. So I would say, yeah, cash is always a clever idea because it's making the least amount of money. So we do want to pull from the cash at first, but if we need the cash to pay for the tax strategy, then we have to resurface a new idea, which we work on with people. You have your Social Security checks clicking in. Maybe you're not having Social Securities turned on for a couple of years, right? So this is why we need to implement that in a plan. Does that make sense? Does it not make sense? And then really figure out what if, and have this conversation, because your CPAs aren't having this conversation, and trust me, your advisors aren't having this conversation with you. When one of you die, you now pay a higher taxes, period. And now you have a loss of income, period. We call this, my buddy calls it the widow's penalty. And what does that mean? So we're married filing jointly, and we get a standard deduction, and our marginal tax rates are very fair based on how the government has it set up. But what's not fair is that when somebody passes away, now you're filing singly, your income goes down because we always lose one Social Security check, and hopefully you don't lose a pension, but we see that happen as well. So it can go down lower than 25%. Your standard deduction gets cut in half, and then your marginal tax brackets go up. It is absolute insanity, but that is how the system works. So on average, I'll see a single people or widow or widowers pay $2,000 to sometimes $10,000 more because we're not married.
Wow.
So we have to figure out that plan too. And if one of you are 60 and one of you are 70, somebody's closer to death than you realize. right? By 10 years. And typically, ladies, you live longer than your counterpartners, right? The gentlemen, that's just historical. And so we have to start thinking about that now, because do you have an extra 5 to 10,000 saved up for taxes in case you live another 20 years in retirement or longer? And so we want to work on that plan. So yes, general knowledge on how to take your withdrawal strategies, but we have to focus on the tax plan first, because of what if somebody dies early? And what if you actually really do want to leave your legacy tax-free? Right now, your IRAs, which is 80% of your money saved for most households, is all taxable. And as it grows, it's continues to be taxable. And then the tax burden goes to the surviving spouse, and then it goes to the kiddos, right? My buddy also named it the kiddos penalty, which I love because it really sticks out, because your kids can no longer stretch their IRAs anymore. And what that means is they used to have to take 2%, maybe 3% out of your IRAs if you had $1 million and just use it at will. They didn't have to cash it out and pay the big tax bill. But now, because of Secure Act 2.0 rules, they have to cash that puppy out over 10 years. So if they make $100,000 in income, you have $1 million. Well, they're probably going to take $100,000 a year out of that. Based on today's taxes, 30% of your inheritance is going to go bye-bye. And I know that's not what you wanted. So is it better if you pay the tax at 20% or 12%? Now you're saving an extra 10, maybe 12% to 20% to the legacy. So we have to plan for that. And that's taxes today. What if taxes change in the future? Nothing's ever guaranteed. And taxes go up. Now it really is a pain point. So we need a plan for that, for what it looks like now. But if it gets worse, you're going to be happy you did.
Something that jumps out at me as you go through this, Charisse, is you've talked to us even on this show before about not taking money out of a falling bucket. We don't want to get into that sequence of returns thing. So it seems as though as you're going through retirement, you kind of have to watch the taxes and you kind of have to watch the market. Because if you've got a lot of 401k money, if you're watching the market and the market is up, maybe I dip into that a little bit, combo with my cash or something like that, because I'm making money. But if that is down, I'm going to want to get my income from another place, and maybe that's where I pull from cash and Social Security and bonds and all of that. And then also watching the tax code as taxes go up, and we think that they probably will, that certainly affects your withdrawals from your 401k. So having somebody like you who is kind of monitoring this and saying, okay, yeah, we can take an extra $10,000 out of your 401k. This year, that's a good thing to do, but next year it might not be.
It's so true. Like, I just sat down with somebody in the Villages, and the spouse was taking $4,500 a month out of their $1 million IRA.
Okay.
And it just gets liquidated every month. And I said, well, what have you done the last 3 months as the market's been going down and coming back up? So you're telling me it's liquidated every month when the market's going down? Why didn't they liquidate 6 to 12 months so that you're not taking bigger losses? Because when you take money out when the market goes down, you can never recover that rate of return. And that's part of sequence return. That's how people run out of money. And he went, wow, I'm taking $54,000 out a year. And I've seen that happen many times. And so we looked at his portfolio for the last 5 years. I was like, you see how you've been doing this every year? When the market dips, it puts another wrench and how it hurts your portfolio. He's like, that's why my portfolio isn't creeping up the way I want to, because I'm taking more withdrawal than the 4% rule. And because it's coming out every month and there's not a plan for, hey, and basically I said, if you just moves 1 year of your income to for our portfolio, our fixed income bucket, I mean, it's averaged 6%. It did 11% last year. I said, and it's in there for a year and it's still making money and you're still taking income from it. He went, well, that sounds like a no-brainer. I went, it's simple, right? But not everybody in my industry that does my job understands simplicity. It's really interesting to me. And he went, wow. And then I said, and we'll use this bucket for the year 2, we use this for year 3, and then this is what you use for 4, 5, and then here's bucket 10. And he went, wow, you really thought through this. I'm like, well, yeah, because I need to make sure you don't run out of money on my watch. So I'm going to protect you as best I can. And then his wife is like, okay, I'm not going to go sit down with my Schwab advisor next week. She's like, I've never seen anything like this. And she had a meeting with them and she's comparing us. And she's like, there's nothing to compare. They don't do what you're doing. And so it made me feel good anyways. But
really
I got a new
interesting.
client. Yeah,
I mean, it's such a simple thing. You say, okay, this is what I need per month. So you take that out of your 401k. You've saved your whole life. You said, this is what it's for. I'm going to take my $4,500 out and you realize at the end of the year that you've caused yourself a tax problem. Instead of taking when the market is up, you could do some more timing.
Yeah,
do you find,
that too.
Charisse, that instead of taking it out every month, if we have a spike in the market, you could say, okay, now take 3 months out, just put that in your money market or your checking account, and that's going to be a tax smart way to do this?
It has nothing to do with taxes, Randy.
Okay.
It has everything to do with losing a rate of return when the market goes down and you have to take income out of it. Now, the tax conversation, the smart conversation there is when the stock market goes down, if you want to roll IRAs over to a Roth IRA, well, you want to do it when the stock market's down. So, right. So timing is everything. You can't always time it because it doesn't always happen. Because we know if you buy that same thing you had in IRA when it went down and you pop it right over into that Roth IRA right away and buy the same thing, it's going to grow back into a tax-free zone. So we like to plan for those time periods. But what you're saying on income, yes, I want to put 12 months of income in a fixed income bucket that is actively managed and is conservative. And I want to average 4 to 6%. So our income we need for this year doesn't have to make 7 and 20%. We need to be conservative, but it is nice when we can make some money on it.
It seems like such a simple thing. You've got this amount of money that you've saved for retirement. I'm just going to draw it down a little bit as I go into retirement, take what I need. But that can get you into some difficulties as well. What Charisse is talking about is just one of those eye-opening moments that you go, I thought I was doing this. I thought it was simple. Look at what I'm getting myself into. Let's have that conversation. Let's talk through that and really get down to doing the math on your retirement and having a purpose and a plan for your money with a withdrawal strategy, an income strategy, a tax strategy. It's all got to work together. 833-368-3680, 833-368-3680, or use the website zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. Click on that. You'll be on your way. Let's get a date on a calendar and talk through this specifically for you. Well, one of the big transitions that we have to make in our lives when we go into retirement is our whole life we've been saving money for retirement. Now you're in retirement. Now you got to start spending your money. And that gets a little difficult to go from primarily spending to protecting and spending your money. This is Jamie Hopkins, and he's explaining how people really have a tough time with that.
That's not super complicated, but I still see retirees sometimes retiring with really high concentrations in just a couple stocks because they were growth vehicles and they allowed them to accumulate wealth, but that might not be the right vehicle to get through retirement. Wealth generation strategies and wealth preservation strategies is what we're talking about now are different things. So a more diversified portfolio, both among equities and across different asset classes, is really important because it gives us flexibility on being able to sell things at different time periods based off of how they're performing.
So, Charisse, have you ever had this conversation? Somebody comes in and you look at this and you say, wow, you've got like a lot of company stock here in your 401k. Maybe we should diversify that a little bit. And they go, oh, no. That's been really good to me. That's been really good to me. And you go, well, it might not be good to you in retirement. That whole idea of these different transitions, going from saving to spending, going from growth to preservation, going into more of a conservative mindset. These are big jumps for some people, aren't they?
Yes, when you walk out the double doors to your employer, collect your last paycheck, you have to start transitioning your plan because you're no longer in accumulation phase. Hear me out. You are not. I don't care what you think. You're in decumulation phase. That means we are living on our income. And to teach a retiree this for the first time in their life, they are a deer in the headlights. Deer in the headlights. They're like, what are you talking about? I got to grow my money, Charisse. I'm like, you do have to grow your money, and we want to keep up with inflation. But what we don't want to do in retirement is become poor all of a sudden because we continued this accumulation phase and did not pre-plan for the market crash phase. Because when the market crashes, you don't have a job anymore. You're living on this income. You're not contributing anymore. You're living off your income. So what are you going to do when the stock market drops 50% because you stayed in this accumulation phase and you're living off this money? Well, guess what? You're going to risk sequence of returns risk, and you are going to potentially run out of money. So if you don't, start to listen up because this is a serious time in your life that people do not even know about. And they just think they can just keep clicking away like they have been before, but you can't. And the market's been fantastic, but it's going to change eventually. So let's talk about this. Become a little bit more conservative in retirement. You can still have all those wishful stocks you want and Amazons and the Googles and the NVIDIAs, all those things you want, but we need a plan for that very stressful day when the market crashes and you're pacing up and down the hallway saying, woulda, coulda, shoulda. And now your wife is like, what happened? Right? Oh, we can't book a trip. What? For how long? What? Why didn't we have this in check? Why didn't we figure out our income plan? And so we don't really want that to happen at all. Here is the second pitfall I see with retirees, Randy. So we have a hard time spending money, don't we? And so what happens is you retire. You don't have a retirement plan. You don't have a Charisi Zinnia Wealth Management Team income plan. You just do what you do. Listen to your advisor. Call me when you want income. That's what they say. And then you collect some income. And then now you're 75 years old and your body hurts. And you're thinking, wow, I have a lot of money still. Why didn't I spend more money earlier? I don't want to leave all this money to my beneficiaries. You will have that conversation, I promise you. Everybody I hear it from, for 20 years, I've heard this conversation. So don't doubt me, trust me. And I assume that's why you're listening. So why you want this income plan and you want to see it in writing, you want to adapt to it and change it, because it gives you permission to spend your money now. When you walk out the double doors to your employer. And if you've already retired, the moment you step in my double doors, that is your first 10 years with us. And we are going to front load the heck out of your income so you can enjoy your retirement before you cannot enjoy your retirement. Because there is going to be a day, and it happens between 72 and 78, where you're like, ow, this hurts. Or, oh, I can't do an Alaskan cruise and get off the ship and do the walking tour. It will happen. I promise you. And these are the stories that I have lived through for the last 20 years of my life. And this is why I restructured Zinnia Wealth Management to give you more income by 20 to 30 to sometimes 40% more than you would ever have planned on your own with the typical stock jock and or on your own. Because I understand it. I understand you. I know what's about to happen in your life, whether you're 60, 65, 70, 80, or 90 years old. So I am the voice of reason, and get that stinking income plan, because I want you to enjoy your years. You've worked so hard. You spoiled your children. They shouldn't get all your money. So anyways, I'm a broken record, but that's how I feel. I want you guys to really enjoy it. I've seen death happen too fast, and enjoy it with your spouse and your families while you can.
Yeah, I think that is one of the big hurdles that so many of us have to get over. You know, in the years, you love watching your account go up and up and up and up, and it just makes you feel good. And then all of a sudden you get into retirement and things start going down. You go, oh, I better slow down. No. That's not what we're talking about here. You've saved this money for retirement for a reason. As Cherise says, let's front load it. Let's get all those trips and all those dreams and all that stuff that you've always wanted to do, your bucket list. Let's get it going early so that you can do those things in your retirement years.
Listen, you can rest when you go to heaven. Just spend money, enjoy it. That's when you rest.
I've always go back to, so Cherise and I have been doing this show for 14 years, and she's got some great stories, but one of my favorite has always been, she looked at somebody and said, I don't want you coming back here until you've got your tickets to your cruise and you show them to me in your hands.
Yes,
and
I did.
She's going to shake her finger and say, you got to go out and enjoy yourself. You just got to do it. Let's give you the confidence to do that. Give Cherise a call, 833-368-3680. Again, 833-368-3680 or ZinniaWealth.com, ZINNIA Wealth.com. All right, so I see these come out about every couple of months. Somebody comes up with another idea to try to help Social Security. So the idea that they have now is to cap Social Security, how much you can get per year. So for individuals, it would be about $50,000 a year. So it would be $4,100 a month. So even if you earned more than that, they would say, no, that's it. $4,100 a month for an individual. For a couple in a household, $5,800 a month. Those are big numbers, Cherise.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, do you see individuals that are getting more than $4,000 and couples that are getting more than, say, $6,000 a month? Is that common?
No, not on average. No.
Okay.
So it's going to split some hairs with a few people that would get more than that, but it's not totally common. I mean, I typically see two spouses, one's at 3,300, the other one's at could be 17 to 2,300. So it's in line, but it's silly. All it does is save 7 years on saving the Social Security Trust Fund. And there are other things. I just don't get it. We got a bunch of dum-dums up there that don't understand Social Security and economics. It's like, is this a card? Like, they have 20 Social Security cards. Let's pull the one that's the most silly. Like, there's other things we could be doing that is for people who are saving today and putting into Social Security that could really change the number. So I just think this is silly. There's hundreds of ways to claim Social Security. And if they start doing caps like this and it drops like this, I'm going to be like, let's collect now and get grandfathered in, right? Because you can collect as early as 62 and full retirement, 67? And then the latest you can collect is 70. So there's lots of strategies. But if we start hearing about caps, and this is not a bad cap, by the way, but if it drops, because I've heard worse caps before when they've talked about this from time to time. So I think this conversation is going to go away. I think somebody's going to step in.
So I saw a list the other day, and it said, here is the average Social Security payment for people 62 to 85. And it did every single year. And 62 to 65, it was under 2,000. And then 66 to 85, the highest it got was about 2,200, 2,300, something like that. So the averages for people are much lower than what this is. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, we've done many stories about this and all these different ideas of, investing Social Security money, raising taxes, taking a cue from different countries and how they're doing it. I think it's going to have to be a combination of all of these different things. But in the end, Charisse, it's probably meaning we're going to have a raise in taxes. They're going to start taking more out of our checks. The employers are going to have to put more in. They'll probably raise the Social Security ages, and that's probably what's going to keep the program going. And that's still going to be difficult for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah, because nobody wants to say, oh, I can't collect till 63 or 64 years old for early retirement. Yep, that's going to happen. But guess what? We're going to live longer, right? With all this AI generation, we're going to live forever. So who cares? No, honestly, I just think if they do a little bit in every little section in Social Security, nobody will feel it. Nobody would care. So if we move it from 62 to 63, people won't like it. But if that's the biggest pain point, we're going to survive that one. But these caps, I don't like. I don't like the means testing. If you're supposed to get $4,000 a month Social Security, I want you to get it. You worked hard for it. You counted on it. Don't start screwing around with my benefits because you put your hands in the pot and, didn't do what you're supposed to do, Mr. Government or Mrs. Government, right? And so I have a problem with that. So I'd rather it be a different way, a more judicial way where it affects everyone, not just the people who are collecting. I don't think it should affect the people who are collecting. It should be the people who have time on their watch and they can actually adjust their plan. When you're retired, you can't adjust. There's no time. You don't want to go back to work, and it's hard to go back to work. People don't want you to come back to work. Anyways, it's nonsensical, and they just need some sense there. They just need me up there. They need me up there. Boy, I would chew them up and spit them out. Gosh, I wish I wanted to get into politics. I know how to hammer it. I would lose.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not a wheeler and dealer.
Charisse on the stump. I could hear it.
All right, just give me the quiet. I'm quieting up now. No more politics talk.
There's a lot out there right now about tax the rich, but the thing about it is the people who have high incomes have put the most into this program. And you can say, okay, you billionaires, you don't need this. Okay, yeah, I can agree with that too. But there's a lot of people that have worked very, very hard, and they're going to get $4,000 a month. And why shouldn't they get their $4,000 a month?
Right.
That's what they were promised. So I think this is one of the main reasons, and I'll say that it's not just because of Social Security, but as laws change, you need to be aware of them. And if it's going to affect you, and those folks up in Congress all the time are tinkering with this because it's the tax code. And that's what they tinker with up there. And it's going to affect you throughout your retirement. And to have a resource like Charisse and saying, okay, here's what they're talking about, here's what they've done, here's what we need to do. And I think that's vital, Charisse, because Social Security has changed just in the time that you've been in business. Social Security tax laws have changed. And since you and I have been doing this show, there's been a lot of adjustments, haven't there?
It's been quite the anomaly. 20 years ago when I got in this business, I didn't know all these changes would happen. And all the disappointment would happen. You start to learn as you get older, they're not looking out for you. They're looking out for them. And so you have to look out for you. This is why we love doing what we do, because we're looking out for you so we can beat Uncle Sam. We can beat some of these geopolitical changes when they do hit us the best we can. We can't control them, but we can plan around them.
Well, that's why we have this show, and to sit down and talk to Charisse about what your retirement looks like, any adjustments that need to be made, and ongoing support. That is so, so vitally important. 833-368-3680. Again, 833-368-3680, or online at zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. Hit the gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. That's basically a no-cost, no-obligation look at your retirement to sit down and talk about what you're in for. 833-368-3680. Charisse, that's all the time we have on this one. I'll give you the last word.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. We had a lot of good information today. And if you don't listen to it, you're going to miss out on some stuff because we don't always talk in this depth, Randy. So as usual, we appreciate you. Live by design and not by default. And we'll see you here next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at zinniawealth.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, a registered investment advisor. The firm only conducts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded from registration requirements. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Insurance products are offered through Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC, Florida license L078655, and Charisse Rivers, Florida license P037744. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, and Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC are affiliated entities. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the podcast and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this podcast is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Any client experience discussed on this show are unique to that client. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities or other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. References to specific investments should not be construed as being past specific recommendations. The returns for various indices discussed in this podcast do not represent the performance of the firm or any of its advisory clients. Returns do not reflect the impact that advisory fees will have on an investment. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. All investment strategies have potential for profit or loss. Different types of investments involve higher and lower levels of risk. There is no guarantee that a specific investment strategy will be suitable or profitable for an investor's portfolio. Historical performance returns for investment indexes and or categories usually do not deduct transaction and or custodial charges or advisory fees, which would decrease historical performance results. There are no guarantees that a portfolio will match or outperform a specific benchmark. Investments in fixed income products are subject to liquidity risk, market risk, index rate risk, credit risk, inflation risk, purchasing power risk, and taxation risk. Because bond prices fluctuate continually, their yields change constantly.